A week ago, I released a video about the top 5 worst campaign suggestions in Enlisted. One campaign that you might recall is the Warsaw Uprising. Although it was on the top 5 worst list, I did say that a potential Warsaw Uprising is a great idea. Therefore, after doing some research and stretching some history, I'm willing to do a potential Warsaw Uprising campaign in Enlisted, and why I may think is the best campaign yet, and considering the fact that, well, a lot should be changed. But that said, this is a video on why the Warsaw Uprising could be the best campaign yet, and why I believe this is actually a great idea. Now before we talk about why the Warsaw Uprising is such a great idea, let's talk about some history. The Warsaw Uprising was a major World War II operation led by the Polish underground resistance to liberate Warsaw from its German occupiers. It occurred on the summer of 1944 and was led by the Polish resistance, the Polish Home Army, and the uprising was timed to coincide with the retreat of the German forces in Poland ahead of the Soviet advance during Operation Barbarossa. This uprising was fought for 63 days with little outside support, and it was the single largest military effort taken by any European resistance movement during the Second World War. Now, the reason why the Warsaw Uprising is such a great idea is because of a few things. First is its contributions, which I already previously just stated some. However, this chart should do a lot to tell you what type of contributions they did, which this chart, if you're looking at it carefully, is a lot of crazy stuff. As a matter of fact, not even the French resistance were able to do what the Polish did. And yeah, that is saying a lot. Not only that, but the Warsaw Uprising's Home Army was the only factions, well, one of the only factions to mass-produce weapons, in some cases a few vehicles, including APCs, right under German occupation. And another reason why is because Poland, as of right now, is enlisted. And adding in Poland will definitely increase the player count, something Enlisted should definitely need. So it's basically a combination of we need Poland, a lot of interesting historical stuff, and a lot of new weapons. However, the question is how. Like I've said at the beginning of the video, the Warsaw Uprising was on the top 5 worst campaign suggestions, and the reason was because of the Polish Home Army had no heavy equipment such as planes and tanks, although you can argue with the latter being considered since the Polish Home Army did capture tanks from the Germans. As of right now, Enlisted has 3 types of general units. The first one is infantry, the next one are tanks, and the final one is planes. All campaigns in Enlisted as of right now have these 3. For the Warsaw campaign, Poland arguably has infantry and tanks, however it definitely lacks an aircraft for obvious reasons. In order to make this campaign work, we have some compromises, and when I say we, I also have another friend who as of right now is going to talk to you guys about the weapons. So, hello, Golden Tony. Talk away about the weapons that the Polish might be using in a Warsaw Uprising.
So, the Polish resistance fighters had actually a wide variety of guns, because they had their own, they had the pre-war Polish guns, they had captured guns, and they had their own self-made underground guns. I'm going to mention some guns that could be implemented to the Warsaw Uprising campaign. So, we have the infantry rifle KBKWVZ 1929, which was a Polish standard issue rifle till 1939. It is very likely for it to be used or be even the standard rifle in the Warsaw Uprising, because it saw mass production and it was even used after the Poles had fallen in the Battle of Poland. Next we have the Polish 98, or the KBWVZ 98A, which was the Polish copy of the G98. It's literally just that. There's almost nothing different to it other than the caliber. There was the Carbine 1898, which was the G98 but a shorter version of it. For all the 3 rifles and carbines mentioned previously, a bayonet could be equipped with the name of Bagnet 28, which means bayonet 28. The Poles had an infantry semi-automatic self-repeating rifle, or a semi-auto as everyone calls it, the KBSPWVC 1938M. but there were only 150 made by the time of war. But you could search the history on that one, because it is already in Berlin. The carbine 91-98-25 was a Mosin Nagant that was made by the Polish and well was modernized in 98 and then in 25. Poles also had their own version of the Nagant revolver and they named it the Nagant Revolver WVZ-30, and it's basically just the exact same as the Nagant 1895. The pistol Viz VZ-35 was a further development of the Colt 1911, and it was a very reliable pistol of the Poles, and it even was so reliable that the Germans produced it after they have taken Poland. They made approximately 500,000, and they were issued from 1943 till 1944. The Błyskawica machine pistol, or well, lightning machine pistol, was a machine pistol that was inspired by the Sten and made completely out of scratch by the Poles and went to mass production by the Poles under the nose of the Germans, which was a pretty good SMG, very reliable, pretty accurate for a self-made gun, and it also had lightning engravings in it, so it had that. Poles also used the Sten SMG, only the Mark II though, that was parachuted in. They also used the PIAT, which stands for Projector Infantry Anti-Tank, and it was, well, a better thing against tanks. The Poles had two types of grenades that they widely used, mainly the Filipinka and the Sidolówka, which were hand grenades that they made themselves. The Filipinka was an impact grenade and the Sidolówka was a fragmentation grenade. So we could see impact grenades. It would be realistic to see impact grenades in the Warsaw Uprising campaign. Poles also had their own anti-tank rifle, which was the anti-tank rifle 7.92mm KPP, or the Karabin Przeciwpancerny WVZ-35. It was used by the Germans after Poland was taken, and also by Italy, which is pretty impressive that Italy even bought those. But it was a very reliable anti-tank rifle, and we could see it being used in the streets of Warsaw. As you might remember, with the Polish Bar Squad, as everyone calls it, the WVZ-28, which was the Polish version of the BAR, or Browning automatic rifle, chambered in the 7.9mm cartridge, was indeed used in Warsaw and in Poland generally, and I would actually very like to see that gun in the campaign tree. For the heavy machine gun, we got the Polish-made clone of the Browning M1917 heavy machine gun, which is the CKM 30, and it was also chambered in the 7.92 x 57mm Mauser cartridge. The Poles also used the Mosin Nagant, and if we need other guns, then we could get the German guns like MP38s, MP40s, P08s, K98Ks, pre-war K98Ks, G3340s, VZ24s, and stuff like that. So we could see that being implemented in for the Poles if they will be lacking in some equipment, because they did capture German equipment. Now moving on to vehicles, we have the Kubusch improvised armored car. Well, it was more an APC to be honest, because it carried troops, and there was only one ever made, and only one was ever lost. But it was a very impressive thing that they had. I don't think we should have this in the Warsaw Uprising campaign, at least not in the campaign 3, because there was only one ever built. Now, the Poles also had the local Jeep, as they called it, or the Polish Fiat 508. It is literally almost the same thing as that car we have in Stalingrad, so that would be cool to see. The Poles also had the captured Sonderkraftfahrzeug 251, and they renamed it the Grey Wolf. They also captured a Jagdpanzer 38 Czechoslovakisch Hetzer and named it the Chwat. They also captured Panzer III's 4s and 5s, but it is not confirmed that they were used in Warsaw. So my suggestion is to not use any kind of vehicles in Warsaw whatsoever, because, well, as you can see in some enlisted battles, there are massive tons of vehicles. If there only was one vehicle, we aren't gonna be able to see it. Also, Warsaw's grounds are really finicky. So like they're all close quarters, even more close quarters than Berlin and Stalingrad. So I think that the tanks would have gotten stuck anyways.
And speaking of tanks and vehicles and the terrain of Poland, let's get back to some compromises. Some people have suggested removing tanks and planes from Warsaw like Tony did, and making this campaign infantry only, which is actually a great idea for two reasons. One, it will make Warsaw the only infantry only campaign in Enlisted. Obviously this has a lot of upsides. For one, you don't have to die due to tanks or planes, and an infantry only campaign is more skill based. Not to mention that an infantry only campaign is something unique in Enlisted. Another addition is to supplement the lack of Polish air and tanks is the addition of only German airplanes and tanks, with the Polish getting stuff that make them more balanced, such as better anti-tank weapons such as the Piat, which were actually airdropped into Warsaw like Tony said. Also, Poland didn't really need tanks or planes, considering the fact that if you have seen the map of Poland, the Warsaw Ghetto, you would realize the buildings not only protect you against tanks and planes, but also cause tanks and planes to sometimes be in danger. This is because of the building's height and how thick they are, considering the fact that AT troopers can easily get on the walls and literally fire their projectiles against the top of the tanks, which can easily be penetrated. The designers will also have to make a map slightly fairer towards the defenders, considering the fact that if you want to give the Germans tanks and the Polish none. Finally, the final way we can supplement Poland's lack of planes and tanks is by adding Soviet planes and capture German tanks by the Poles. This would essentially make Warsaw another Berlin/Stalingrad campaign, and although this one is stretching a little bit of history, since the Soviets didn't provide Poland with anything, as a matter of fact, they only took away stuff. Most notably when the Western Allies attempt to airdrop Polish air support, the Soviets denied it by closing off their air bases. So having the Soviets fly their yaks is quite historically inaccurate, but not impossible. In terms of tanks, the Polish never really captured that many German tanks to really deploy them en masse, but once again, I am willing to stretch a little bit history to make the Warsaw Uprising work. But that said, this video has already been long enough. Don't forget to subscribe to Golden Tony's channel, which is in the link below. Shout out to him for making this video possible. Shout out for him for also suggesting this video. And have a great day, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our Discords, and I'll see you in the next one. Now before you leave, I would like to thank you very much for watching this video. I would be honored if you could like and subscribe to the channel. Remember, more videos are coming out, so it is a good idea to click on that notification button. Anyways, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.